Sorry about that. Well, I'm going to stop worrying about my video because it's not really important that you see me. I am the black corner. It's Keith Bamberger. Welcome to the October 11th Blue Horizons Council meeting. And I would like to start the meeting with just some basic invitations. There are a few new people on the call, but and for those new people, it would be great if the community council members would just say their name. And how about what brought you to Asheville? Because, well, not so many people are from here. And I'm Keith Bamberger, represented by the Black Square. I am from Michigan originally, and I came to North Carolina because, well, during college, my parents moved my stuff and I didn't leave. But Asheville was actually non-intentional, but I stayed for 20 years. So here I am. I work for the North Carolina Division of Air Quality, but I do not serve on this committee as an employee of the state. How about Chris?
Sure, thanks, Keith. Chris Pallarine. I would say my wife and I had a hope and a prayer that life would work about 8 years ago before we moved here, and Asheville was the choice. And 2 kids and a house later, I think we're here to stay. So it's a great place to call home.
Great, thanks, Chris. Dave?
Yeah, I'm Dave Erb. I'm an automotive engineer. My wife had wanted to live here since 1977, and in 2007, we finally made it. And we have bought our last house in a very nomadic life.
I hope this one's not better than a tent being pulled by camels or horses. So, Michelle?
Hey everybody, good to see you today. Michelle Myers. I'm a community member at large or something like that. And I moved here about 5 years ago. My in-laws live in Black Mountain a majority of the year. And they say people are half backers because they moved to Florida. They're from New York, they moved to Florida, they moved back to North Carolina. Well, I'm from New York and my husband's parents were in Florida. So we're not half backers, but halfwayers. And we love it. We love the access to nature and really just thought it was a great community to start a family in. So we did.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. There are a few new people on the meeting who haven't been to one of our meetings before. So if you don't mind, I'm going to call you out and you don't have to answer, but just tell us why you're here today. And I'm going to start with Micah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Micah Kraus, and I am a sustainability, communications, and ESG consultant here in Asheville, working remotely. We've only been here for about 1.5 years, and we moved from Austin, Texas, where I was for a very long time, to Bentonville, working for Walmart, and then to Asheville. And we were here because we love the outdoors. And my husband went to Camp Rockmont growing up. And so we were very familiar with the whole area and we love it. We have 2 kids and just couldn't be happier. So I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
Maggie, if you could just quickly introduce yourself. Good to see you again.
You too, Keith. Hey, y'all. My name is Maggie Ullman, and I came to Asheville 20 years ago to go to UNCA to study environmental policy. I'm on the call today because I recently applied to join your committee, and I think you'll talk about that later. So I just wanted to listen in on the conversation and give a face to the name. And then also I'm running for city council, and my understanding is there are council appointments to this, or that the city could play a bigger role. So I definitely have hopes that if I make that seat on council, that I can also bring that connection and have the city kind of maybe show up a little stronger in support of this group as it once was.
Great. Thank you, Maggie. And Jackie, you haven't been here for a while.
I don't think I've ever been to one of these. I'm Jackie Hampstead. I'm new with Buncombe County, so I'm working with Jeremiah in the office, in the sustainability office. Hope to be able to take some of like contract administration off of his plate for Blue Horizons project. So, and I'm just like here to observe. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And Jeffrey, you were here when as a voting member of the community council. If you could just introduce yourself and what brought you to Asheville.
Sure. Thanks, Keith. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. Jeffrey Barton. I work with Mountain Housing Opportunities here in Asheville, and that's actually what brought me here. I moved here 9.5 years ago, almost 10 years ago, for a job as an architectural fellow working to kind of boost the sustainability of the work of MHO, and also just kind of contribute to overall improvement in the design of affordable housing in our region.
Thanks, Jeffrey. And Rakesh?
Yeah, hi all. Good afternoon. I go by Rocky, so you can call me Rocky. I am an automotive engineer, currently working on vehicle-to-grid type of applications for an OEM, for a car company. I'm here. Well, I came to Asheville mainly for the outdoors from Dallas, Texas, and before that I was in Boston for graduate school at MIT. I came to Asheville mostly for the outdoors, and I'm in this call today because I applied to one of the positions in the community council. Yeah, I look forward to the discussion and learning more about Blue Horizons project as we move along. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Rocky. So from the introductions, let's move on to approving the September. Let's move on to approving the September meeting minutes. I hope everybody got a chance to review them. Is there any discussion about the September minutes? Okay. If there's no discussion, I'd like a motion from one of the voting members.
I'll move to
Thank you,
approve the
Dave.
minutes.
Do we have a second?
Was
I'll
Chris.
second. Beat you
Got
to it,
it.
Chris.
You got it.
All those approved say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, if there are none who opposed, anybody abstaining? So the minutes are approved. Okay. So now we're to new business, and I'm gonna hand over the mic to Michelle.
Hey, thanks. Is this for the DEI homework portion?
Yeah, though if you want to wait, I mean, we're still down a few voting members. We can go on and bring that back up because a few of the members may still arrive. That's your choice.
Well, there's not too much to say, so I'll just leave it at this. We are going to do an hour-long diversity, equity, and inclusion training at the November meeting, and there will be homework. It's just going to be, I think, a implicit biased survey that you'll take, and I will send out a link.
All right, great. Well, thank you for setting that up. I look forward to participating.
Okay.
All right, next on the agenda, we have an update of the Inflation Reduction Act and also a chance for Summer to show off her flyer. If you'd like, go ahead, Summer. And
Yeah, so I just put the link to it in the chat. I can share my screen too. Hold on, I gotta pull it up. Steffi originally created this, so I cannot take credit, but since some of you have seen it last time, the tech committee made some suggestions for the order of incentives. So here it is. Okay. So it looks like this. And we just use Rewiring America's IRA calculator and put all the discounts and tax credits available. And this order, according to the tech committee, is kind of how we need to promote the importance of each thing. So EVs are at the top along with heat pump and heat pump water heaters. So sorry, my connection's unstable and it looks choppy on my screen. So apologies there. But one question about this, I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute to calm down my Wi-Fi. But how are we going to proceed as we learn more about the IRA? And we were thinking about putting this as a website resource so that people in our area can go on there and see what's available to them. I think it would be really great if we can go into even more detail on those certain things once we know specifically how it's going to help Buncombe County's goals. But we just kind of wanted feedback on how much BHPCC wanted to be involved in that, or if, you know, staff should kind of stick to that, but curious about thoughts there. And if we can maybe keep an ongoing document somehow as we learn more, and we can just add a whole tab on the website and try to be a really good resource to that, or is that even in our scope? So that's kind of the question.
so I'll just share my opinion first, since I talk a lot during these meetings. It's my job. So I really like the idea of having a live document on the Blue Horizons webpage, because that's kind of where we've already got some of those resources out there, and it's a really good place to point people because of those existing resources. It's where they can find out about the home energy chats and these other components. My 2 cents. Any other thoughts? I don't want to limit this particular conversation just to voting members. So if other people have thoughts, if you could please virtually raise your hand, it makes it easier for me to find you if you would like to share your comments.
I don't know, reactions, raise hand. I'm sorry. There you go. Turn it on for.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, and so we're involved with the stuff where we're making interactive tools. And so I just glanced at it again, and I think it would be really cool if not only do you put it online, but each of the separate boxes is a link to additional information, like at the DOE or on our site or you know, wherever it is. But each one is actually really interactive and gives more information. And I'd be glad to help with that, although I know you can do that too. You just make each paragraph a separate unit in it with a link, you know, in WordPress, and it's very easy to do. And I think that would be really cool.
I think I would agree with Rick that it is nice to have access to more information. And also, I mean, let's all hope by next year, the folks that are going to be offering to do this work is going to be slamming the public sector with different ways for them to get more work from the IRA. So on one hand, I imagine that, you know, all the contractors that are going to be signing up to be eligible for this work are going to be coming up with their own marketing to market to the public. It's a good question, Summer, about what's in scope. Do we want to look at having our own list of preferred vendors that we feel are doing great jobs in these different sectors so that the local community can, have a resource to go to? I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure that, sometime next year, we're going to be hearing a whole lot of ads about different ways to capture these incentives.
Brad?
On. Yeah, I totally agree with what Chris said, and just would go further that the key thing in terms of our reaction to the IRA is going to be how much participation we can generate, because it really is astounding. And I think we need to identify the things that are most likely to, well, we need to identify obstacles, and then we need to identify ways of getting around those obstacles. One thing I do know is that with heat pump water heaters, which I think offer the most astounding returns for people with the kind of credits that are being contemplated or that have been passed into law, is that having a preferred set of vendors or vendors who are going to, kind of a more of a solarized kind of a thing for some of these things that we really identify that we want to go heavy into, and then have a community support. I'm not saying necessarily bulk buying, but it could be like these vendors will give you a good deal because we worked it out with them, that's what it takes to be suggested by our website as a possibility.
Thank you, Brad. Sam?
Yeah, I just mentioned on the staff side, we've been talking about different ways of promoting this, and of course, events that we do and presentations as well. And we've been talking about doing more direct outreach with HVAC contractors in particular. Robert Sipes and I did some of that a few years ago. We got kind of a lukewarm response from them in terms of promoting Duke's incentives. But with these advanced incentives, it seems like they could potentially get a lot of customers through this process. So yeah, preferred vendor idea is a possibility. That's something that Duke does. They have a company called Trade Allies, and that works okay. Although some HVAC contractors don't like that process of going through their, jumping through their hoop, but that is a possibility. I will also just say that you'll see on this list, many of them are tax rebates. So that's pretty straightforward how that's going to work. Someone will install something, then they'll mark it on their taxes, and then they'll get a rebate through the IRS, through their, through a check or through a refund on their taxes. However, there's some of them on here, like the whole home energy reduction performance rebate up to $4,000. So that one in particular, and also the basic weatherization, the $1,600. We don't know how those are going to play out, like how those are going to be implemented yet. So I'm in conversation with a few other folks about that. We have connections into the DOE, and we're trying to learn about, which entity on the federal level is actually implementing some of these things. Where will the money flow through the federal government? What flow through into the state government, and then into nonprofits like ours or contractors? These details still have to be worked out. Once we figure all that out, that'll give us a better chance of how do we deliver the message to the customers who will take advantage of this through some of our outreach mechanisms.
To that point, Sam, I would consider adding, as much as we know, the eligibility criteria. Because if I understand correctly, all these tax credits are based on the median income. I can't remember exactly what it is, or if it's different for each one, but if you make more than the median income, then the amount of money you'll get will go down. And it might be a good idea to put some information about that for people who are expressing interest. So I don't know if the group knows what those numbers are, or if it's applicable to all tax credits, but I'm just verbalizing that it might be a good thing to put on here.
Yeah, Jeffrey. And I think also that whole piece about the links to more information, is essential once we have specific places to direct people. And this Rewiring America, is trying to be that as a source, and there'll be others as well. But yeah, providing, specific information is going to be key.
Jeffrey, you've got your hand
Only
up.
thing I would add, this is a really good summary, and I think all the comments have been great about adding more detail as we have it, or finding, links for more information as it kind of rolls out. The one thing I might add now would just be like contact information, to, if people are interested in a home energy chat to kind of get the conversation started, then, that's something that we do now while these things are kind of working their way through the finding out period of all the details.
That is a really good point, Jeffrey. And I think that we could certainly, as much as we want to or feel appropriate, do a marketing point. That's a way to get people's attention, saying, take a home energy chat now, so you're ready to take advantage of these tax credits and tax advantages when they are available. That's a really good place for most people to start.
I will say we have a second page to this that's energy saving tips, where we have home energy chats on it, but I like making it more specific about call us to learn about this specifically. I think that would draw some more people. So we'll figure out how to incorporate that on this page as well.
Great. And the other side, which isn't about the Inflation Reduction Act, that's also great. Thank you for doing that. So there's Summer and Stephanie and staff. Any other questions or comments about the Inflation Reduction Act at this time? All right, thanks for the conversation. Next thing is we talked a little about a informal gathering, and I have just a hypothetical date. I mean, we could go through the whole conversation about when to have it, but I just think we should see, what day did I choose? Hold on, I'm having screen trouble. I'm working from home today and I have only 2 screens, not 3, and it really messes with me, and that's really sad. All right, I was thinking that Thursday, October 27th at like 5:30 after work at Highwire in the River Arts District would be a good place and time. And we can send out invitations to all the groups, encourage people to bring friends. I'll see if I can share my screen. So you should be looking at it's the River Arts District. So it's right down where 12 Bones is, and we've met there before for some informal things. Parking is usually pretty good and easy. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. So does that sound good to everybody, or is there something going on that we need to know about and schedule around? I know that City Council and County Commission meetings are generally on Tuesdays. The Long Range Planning Steering Committees, those have been on Tuesdays. So I think that Thursday, it's before the next meeting, which might also be good. Any thoughts? Or should I just send out an invite to everybody? And really, it's just an informal gathering since we don't get to see each other every month in person. So don't forget. You might think that I'm a giant black box in the future. Okay, I'll move on to the next item and we'll just send something out for that date. So I had some thoughts in some of the recent meetings, and this is basically some things that I think we need to think about as a council, have some discussion about. And one thing that I think would be good. And I don't know. So when we're talking about the nomination process and people coming on to the board, I was thinking about students, and it would be really hard if a college student is what I was thinking about, who wanted to be involved in Blue Ridge Community Council. Most students are really uncomfortable with a 3-year commitment to, well, anything. I just wondered if we should try to make some sort of concession or to a student being in a three-year term, or if a student applies, we can talk to them and just tell them that if they want to be a part of the committee, they don't necessarily, we understand if they can't make that 3-year commitment, to not have that be a reason why they don't join or put their application in. I thought we could talk about that for just a minute or two. I don't know if we've received any student applications, but I did share the post with somebody, and that was part of their concerns. Anyway, any thoughts? Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on in that. I think having student voice would be really helpful, or students, plural. I know for myself as a student, when I was in college, if I saw a 3-year commitment, I wouldn't be even considered. So I think instead of just saying 3-year and then trying to have a conversation with folks who are interested, maybe if you want to leave a range, you can say 1 to 3 year commitment. But I think seeing that 3-year probably would discourage and turn people off from even doing it.
I like the idea of having a younger generation as part of this group. But, you know, I have in the back of my head about what our mission is, and trying to, you know, do our best to connect with as many folks in the county and the community, which of course the younger generation is. So I like the idea, but of course, trying to figure out how to include them in a productive way. I'm brainstorming right now, and I'm sure, I don't think you're meant for this to be a brainstorming session, so I'll keep that to myself. But I like the idea about having a pathway to include a younger generation in our community.
Thanks, Chris. Dave?
Yeah, I wonder, is there any real advantage in having them be voting, applied and approved members of the committee, as opposed to just making it clear publicly that they're welcome to attend and contribute? The difference between a formal membership on the committee and a very informal membership.
And maybe all that in there, just to piggyback off of you, Dave, is maybe it's more of a, we'd love to have you on one of our subcommittees for a year. Maybe you can join the communication plan, whatever that is, and come to bigger meetings and give your opinions. So just to piggyback on.
Michelle?
I really am into leadership development. And I think giving youth opportunities to actually be voting members is a way to just foster leadership in the future. And I think you'll find that it's not that disruptive. They'll just learn and participate, and it will be helpful. And then they also will help recruit for subcommittees, which we need, and maybe some outreach too. So I think there probably is a way to make a voting member. I think if it's college age people, a year commitment might be better suited. We might be looking at, recruiting from seniors, or, people who don't know what they're going to be doing in more than a year.
Any additional thoughts? So to sum up what I heard, that everybody agrees that it would be great to have some youth participating either in our subcommittees or as a voting member. We need to create a space or where they feel welcome, where they know that they will be equal members with everybody else and they'll be a part of our discussions and they can contribute and share. And so give me a thumbs up if I'm summing that up correctly. Okay, good. So I'll work on something for the next meeting just to kind of foster that. I'll talk to a couple of people who work directly with students and see what their opinions are, and so we can kind of foster that going forward. Thank you. I also had another thought, and this was actually while I was looking and trying to pick a date. We've been meeting on Tuesdays, and I don't think we need, I mean, we've all got it on our schedule for now, so I don't necessarily think we need to change it, but it may not be the easiest day, especially if you're, well, you know, with the city council and Buncombe County meeting on Tuesdays also. Now, right now, they're not. Well, isn't the city meeting on the second Tuesday? So it'd be very, I don't know if that'd be the easiest thing. Something we should think about, but not until next year when somebody else is in charge. But it is something that I thought about. So on the agenda.
Did you just tell Michelle? Did you just tell Michelle into that? Getting voluntold
No,
is brutal sometimes.
it was a joke.
That was good.
You can't see my face. I'm laughing.
I took note. I took note of that. Good idea, Keith.
That's okay. I'm sure you'll assign me with lots of things in the future also. Anyway, on the agenda, we also had expanding the Blue Horizons Project Community Council concerns and questions. And if Jamie, you could just talk about that a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah, there were some questions from some of the committee members, and I just wanted to go through this. And also Bridget from the city brought some of this stuff up. We mentioned in our check-in meeting with the city and the county that we wanted to expand the BHPCC, that Michelle and I had been talking about it in our recruitment membership meetings, and I couldn't recall if we all talked about it together. But more members means that it'll be more difficult to get quorum. So that's a concern when you go into a bigger committee. Also managing more people, making sure that folks are checked in and involved. It might mean additional meetings, but also it could mean some help in the meetings. How right now, if you look at the agenda, it's mostly staff or Keith or Michelle speaking. So, or sorry, David Gordon, didn't want to leave you out on that, but like people that are on the committee, as we're adding committee members, trying to get folks to hear more voices in here. So it's less of a monologue and there's more variety. And then as we're recruiting folks, to make sure that we have capacity to serve areas we don't currently reach. So like as we're recruiting folks and like choosing new members, to make sure that we're adding them with a mind of where can they fill in the gaps, like a gap analysis. So that was just some feedback from the city and from conversations we've had in the membership committee. And I just wanted to have an item on the agenda to let everyone know about those concerns or those potential benefits from having more members, and have space in the meeting to talk about what it means to expand or not expand, because it would be a group decision, not just a couple of folks working on our own. So I wanted to have space for that. If there are any comments or questions on expanding the BHPCC to 13 members instead of 10.
I don't recall hearing the detail about the thought to expand, and forgive me if this was discussed in a previous meeting, but are there certain sectors that we're hoping to, from the community, that we want to bring in that currently are not represented, and that was one of the reasons to consider expanding? Was that Michelle's idea? I couldn't remember. No, it was just
I'm actually surprised. I didn't know we were talking about expanding, so it's not me. I feel like we just have to recruit to fill the seats we have.
Oh.
Honestly.
Well, no,
But-
so we have 13 seats that we can have according to the bylaws, and right now 10 are filled. So we're talking about filling all 13 seats. So maybe I misrepresented that a little bit.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay.
Awkward.
No,
Michelle's
that's-
like, we didn't talk about that. What are you talking about?
I get it now.
My bad.
I get it. Okay.
And so I guess the feedback from the city is, okay, well, if we fill those seats, then that's more folks to wrangle. We have to get more people to get quorum. And so concerns around that. Judy, Rick?
I'm sorry, I didn't know if you wanted us to chime in or not, but I mean, I would just counter with two things. First of all, more people is more people to get a quorum. The reality is some percentage of people don't show up, not a number necessarily. So it's not necessarily a negative. But on the flip side, would also just like to point out that one of the voices that's not here right now is HVAC contractor. And we do bring that voice, but we literally do not have the capacity to be formally on this board. You wouldn't believe the things we're on. It's too much. And so, but we're here. We're here every time, every month, and trying to productively add in. And I would just like to voice the opinion that maybe this doesn't have to be quite so much of a formal city process where you've got a board and the public and there's such a distinction and all. And it might be just a little bit more of an attitudinal change, might in fact bring some of those voices in where it would benefit. Just a thought.
Thank you. Appreciate that feedback.
From a practical point of view, we don't vote very often. So a quorum it's not like some boards that I've been a part where there are half a dozen votes every meeting that you need to have a quorum for. But I do like the idea of being strategic and filling those gaps that we know exist and our goal of, well, 100% reduction by 2042.
Yeah, I'd add on to Rick's comment that knowing that so much of the IRA and it seems like the Blue Horizons project can play a role in helping the community understand what's available to them. It would be phenomenal if we had some providers in the area who are going to be doing the actual work, help us understand their perspective of the IRA. Because currently we don't have that on the committee. And I agree with you, Rick. Having the formality is difficult. Having just the meeting on the calendar sometimes can be difficult. But that shouldn't stop us from at least trying to reach out to some of those folks, however we can.
I wonder, just because we are still in active recruitment right now, is there a network of folks, Rick and Judy or others that that is more like trades folks that we could be reaching out to? I think Jamie's done a really phenomenal job of getting this through like kind of different media outlets, but that's to the general public. So if we want HVAC folks, we have to recruit HVAC folks, right? So you're HVAC folks, please, how do we recruit in the HVAC community? I don't have that skill set.
Well, the big challenge is that anybody who's actually doing HVAC for a living and they're in the business and that's their fundamental business is going to be on the job.
Yeah, they're gonna.
You're not in an office. These are not people who are in offices, especially the people we're talking about working with, the people who like right now are working with energy savers and putting in a bunch of heat pumps for Greenbelt Alliance. They're small business people. They don't show up here. You heard my pitch. I think you need to realize you do have that particular resource here, although it's not currently been used. And it would be good to bring them in and interview them. I think that would be an ask, and asking them to be committing long-term and I don't know, I would ask the gentleman who's helping right now with the Greenbelt Alliance, maybe he'd be interested. Small people we know, overloaded, slammed. The people who are good do not have time.
You know, with that said, though, I agree, Rick, the smaller outfits, they are likely slammed. But I think some of the bigger outfits, if we're going to use names, MB Haynes, I imagine their marketing, they have dedicated marketing sales numbers that they need to hit. And perhaps this could be not pitched, even though we're talking about sales and marketing folks, as an opportunity to reach more potential customers, right? And I know we're not making the Blue Horizons project a platform for local vendors to sell projects, but that may be one of the ways that we can try to incentivize participation from the private sector.
In that case, I'll answer Michelle's original question, and that is, who would we suggest to contact? And I think that would be like Gentry and who else in that? Yeah, White and Williams, maybe, I guess. And then there were some other names that you could think of as sort of leading companies that I would never suggest. And I'd be more than happy to tell people offline.
That would be great. Even an email introduction would be phenomenal. You can do myself or Jamie. We're both in the recruitment committee, or both of us. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's all I have on that item, unless there's more comments. We can move to the next one. Although Brownie's not here, so Keith, do you want to talk about this, or do you want me to talk about the floating PB?
Well, no, I think we can just table that for now. We talked about it previously. I saw an article about it. I didn't know if Brownie would have an update, but if he does, he's not here to share. So we can just table that until next month or until we know more, unless somebody else has an update on floating solar and how that project is going, which would be great.
For new folks,
2 minutes.
Go ahead, Maggie.
So I serve on the county's energy environment subcommittee, where it's 3 of the commissioners and then there's 4 of us citizens. So this has been one of the things that we've been working on and talking about, and I've been kind of the support to Brownie on this. And so if anyone read the article in the Citizen Times, it's basically saying that the money is being allocated to do a feasibility study for floating solar on both Lake Julian at the Duke Power Plant and the North Fork Reservoir, which is the city's largest water reservoir for drinking water. So that's moving forward. There's a lot that needs to be sorted out in a feasibility study. That's why dedicating money to it is worth it, because it's definitely far from certain that it's possible. But it's exciting that the city is interested enough to pursue, Duke is interested enough to pursue, and the county is taking the financial leadership to determine the feasibility. So that might be stuff you've already heard, but yeah, that's what I'd add.
Maggie, is there a vote to allocate the funding, or has the funding already been allocated?
I think it might have already been allocated, but the staff at the city or the county might be better suited to answer that. I don't know, but I know that we as a subcommittee had voted on it a while ago, and I assume that had gone to the commissioners for a full vote, but I don't know.
Great. Thanks, Maggie. That's a good update. So before we move on to the subcommittee or standing program reports, do we have any other additional comments regarding new business things that we just discussed?
I have a clarification question for the first item. Do I remember that the DEI training that's going to be remote, or will it be in person?
It'll be remote in the general, just in the same block of time as this regular scheduled meeting. And I should clarify, the bias inventory that everyone will take is for your own thought process. You're not like reporting out your biases unless you care to share. We're not going to ask you to submit those or anything like that.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. So let's hand the mic to David about the Strategic Planning Committee.
Right, here we go. So this was a pretty successful and busy month where we had a lot of things going on. So you all did a great job of completing and filling out that survey. So in the meeting, we went over the results of that survey. Just a survey about, what do we think are going to be the top 10 most impactful different folks? Look further into it. And actually, looks like we might have some time. Do folks want to see what those were? Share a quick slide.
I would like to see them.
All right. I'm going to.
Hey, and Dave, it's a little hard to hear you for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Okay.
I think that's happening for anybody else. But
If I just talk a little bit louder, does that help?
It does.
Okay, great. I'll try to do that. Thanks for the feedback, Dan. All right, sharing my screen now. And so this might be a little bit small on your screen, but I can kind of just give you a quick overview of what we're looking at. So we have the top 10, there's actually 11 here, but the programs that came in under 10. On the right side, you see the mean number. That's more or less the average of what people voted this program to be. So the number one, or the one that came up as number one most often, was Energy Savers Network. After that, we had building efficiency in general, so things like heat pump programs, efficiency checklists, energy audits and retrofits. After that, we had giant solar farms and photovoltaics. Speaking of photovoltaics that we were talking about. Then we have a push for privately owned EVs. And after that was expanding the EV charging infrastructure. And going on with transportation, that's electric public transit, buses, small vans, different things like that. Coming up next, group purchase campaigns, so things like Solarize or group purchases for heat pumps, EVs, potentially, things like that. And back to transportation, just increasing mass transit ridership, getting more folks on the way already. Then bringing in agrivoltaics. Finally, and then back to better building challenges with voluntary connected programs. That might not, well, we can talk about that more later. And then the last one that came in under 10 was district energy, sort of like power hubs, distributed energy resources, microgrids, those kinds of. And then, as you may remember, everyone had the option to add in another initiative that wasn't listed there. So it came up twice as the Green Button Data Initiative. And if you're not familiar with that, it's basically a resource to try to make residential and commercial energy usage data more easily accessible and easier to share that data. Also, Commercial Energy Star benchmarking mandates, looking at incentives for net zero and solar on new buildings. And then this one's kind of long, so I'll try to summarize, but it's essentially adding energy storage, both to new and existing renewable energy resources. It's kind of weaving that in energy storage as well. And finally, carbon capture and storage for farming. So that sort of sums up what the survey results were. Does anybody have any questions about any of that before I move on? Cool. So the other things that we talked about are pretty related to that. So what are we going to do with those results? We're going to sort of do some diving deep into all the different pieces of those potential programs. How do we evaluate them, and what do we want to look at as we're evaluating them? We did a big brainstorming session looking at all of that. Also looking at how Cadmus did it, because they actually had a pretty good framework for looking at programs. So we're going to base a lot of it off of that, but kind of try to customize it and cater it a little bit more to reflect the values of Blue Horizon project as opposed to what Cadmus thought that they need to be looking at. So we're looking at tweaking it a little bit. and sort of, I'm still working on, or we are still working on kind of writing that up to get it exactly how we want it and reflecting the writer project. But that's where we are with that. And then the big piece of it, and I can share this link right now, is because we have to come up with this final document that's sharing the plan or describing the strategic plan. And you all are much more expert in a lot of these fields than I am. We're also asking folks to kind of contribute to that and to share the wealth of information that you all have in your head. So we're doing a topic sign up for those winning survey results. So I'll send that out in email as well. But if you all would be willing to sign up for a topic that you think you could contribute some of your expertise into that would help write that final specific plan, that would be greatly appreciated. And that's sort of that's what we got going on. I know that was a lot, but we talked a lot longer than I usually do, but it's been good stuff all around. So look for an email. Feel free to let me know if you have questions, but it would be great if there's any information or resources you can share to help with this info gathering. Looks like Brad, you have a question or wanted to share something as well?
Yeah, I know I had, you know, these have some very specific names, and I think the people that sign up are free to interpret them more broadly. At least I will take that mantle, because I, see the Energy Savers Network, which is a program, and yet to me that is really not Energy Savers Network, the program, but more broadly orienting what we do around helping low-income people save on energy. And so it could also include something like the neighbor to neighbor solar or whatever program that really isn't involved, or collaborating with community action opportunities, or leveraging federal dollars. I just see that we shouldn't limit these things necessarily by the name of a program. So I'd almost rather have that be called low income programs.
Sure, and I think that makes total sense. So, I think that's a really good point, Brad. So for folks, as you're looking at these lists, if you think that there's something else that you feel like is important and relevant and can be connected to one of these programs, or however you want to do it, feel free to add that in there as well, because I think you're right. These a lot of, even like building efficiency, like that's a very large spectrum topic. So a lot of things can go into it. But yeah, you make a good point.
Dave, can you provide us the major headings that we're looking to do for each one of the programs, like scale and feasibility, equity? What are those pieces that once for each one of these programs we're going to answer these elements or these major headings? I'm not sure what we're calling them, but those, yeah.
All right, can you all see my screen again?
Yep.
Yes?
Can,
Okay.
it's small.
Yeah. So here, we'll do it. Hold on one second. Mouse is slow. Give me one second.
I guess while he's doing that, we can't do everything, right? Like that list is pretty darn exhaustive. And we could probably talk at length about every single one of them. So I'm not sure if the goal is to try to choose a top 3 and for us to attempt to agree on those are the ones that we feel we should focus on collectively. But, we could just talk all day about all these different things, and it seems like we'd be spinning our wheels in some ways. I'm just going to throw that out there. But Dave, I will say thank you for putting the survey together. It was great. I enjoyed doing it. So thanks for doing that.
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you for participating. And I totally get and understand the desire and the need and the feel for trying to whittle some of these things down and focus. And that was sort of the intention, because we had, you know, even before that, an extensive list, I think of like over 50 potential programs. So we really kept trying to hone it down and make it smaller and smaller and smaller. So now we're looking at, you know, 10 or 11 plus maybe 5 more other ones. But I see what you're saying. But we have, if that helps at all, we have whittled it down quite a bit already. And not to say that won't have a real thing. But to answer Sam's question, some of the things that we talked about trying to ask folks to help with. And again, this is still sort of a work in progress. We are still kind of working on the fine details. The subject to change, but really what we're looking at is feasibility, which kind of looks at policy and legal, scale, a cost benefit analysis / impact. So like, you know, what are we looking at in terms of the financial cost? Is it gonna cost $1 billion, or is it gonna save $1 billion? How's the equity getting woven into all of this? Does it have positive effects, negative effects, things like that? And then just for reference, we're still trying to do it sort of how Cadmus did it, in looking at things on sort of a low, medium, or high impact. And we're still working on how exactly we want to define what's low, what's medium, what's high. But that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at: feasibility, scale, cost benefit analysis, or impact and equity. Does that answer that question well enough for folks?
I just got another thing I wanted to bring up. I mean, I think that was Chris that made that last point about we can't do everything. And honestly, how do we decide what to do? I think ultimately it's what can we get energy behind is gonna, I think that ultimately ought to drive that. Or what can we get budget for? I mean, we either need to hire somebody, or somebody needs to volunteer, or needs to spearhead an activity, or it won't happen. And, you know, we could recommend, for example, on transportation, I think we recommended, well, there are other groups. We recommend working with those other groups, or really delegating to them on some things, or if it, you know, so I mean, any of these things, you know, given we don't have a whole lot of budget, we've got limited scope, and it's either going to take somebody who's a volunteer in the community to take up one of these things, or we've got to find money to budget for some aspect of it.
Can I just jump in on that too? And I would say, yeah, there's a big piece of how can we make these things work in the reality of to get there. But say, for example, there is a limited budget, which there always is. We know there's going to be a limited budget. And so say somebody has X amount of money that they can put towards a program, but they would like to know what's going to give them the most bang for their buck, and also address the social and equity concerns. Hopefully this analysis that we're doing can help provide the information to help guide that decision process. Well, this is going to get you this much, it's going to cost this much, it's going to save this much, and have these things. So I think that's sort of where this plan is coming into play, where we can help to prioritize and guide that decision.
And you know, we could talk about this forever, but you know, if somebody with money, including the city and county, ever get serious about meeting the community goals for renewable energy and having an active role in that, then we would have to presume that there would be more money for that, because obviously it's not going to happen from a few volunteers sitting around this table. But the resources that would be required to do it really require all these areas to be addressed if we're actually going to achieve the goals. And so, you know, ultimately, you know, is the community serious about achieving the goals? Or are we just going to ride along with the rest of society and hope that the market and other government levels of government do it? to achieve those goals. And I'll just put that out there. It's, like I said, we could talk about that a whole lot, but we need to be thinking about that over time.
Thanks for that discussion. Are there any more comments before we move on to the technology subcommittee? All right. Jamie, your name is next to that.
So the tech subcommittee, we talked about things that would help us, like the products that we could create to reach the 100% renewable goal. And I asked if the committee could come up with a wedge graph to help kind of like account for how much of a specific technology over time would help. And it already exists somewhere within the strategic plan. So I'm going to take a look at that. And we kind of came around to what are we going to do to manage the role that transportation plays in this? Because Greenbelt Alliance doesn't have resources to do transportation. Is not really what we're tooled for. So who could we work with? And we've been talking in this committee and the other committees about bringing Land of Sky in more closely and seeing, because they do transportation, regional planning. And so it could make sense to have them more engaged so that we can address that EV to building connection with their expertise. And then of course, Dave Erb was like, well, I do that too. Don't forget about me. So we got Dave. So thanks, buddy. Appreciate your help. Later on, we talked about the 100% renewable strategy committee items that everybody voted on that Dave Gordon showed you earlier, and kind of if those made sense. I think everybody agreed they did. And then creating a heat pump decision matrix, and kind of who would that be for? Would it be for the contractor, or would it be for individual customers? And that was kind of an outreach question more than like the technical result question. But we're getting a draft together for next month and kind of looking at like the ROI. Rick actually put together the model on a spreadsheet, which I very much enjoyed as a spreadsheet connoisseur, seeing how it all played out. Thank you. And then we were trying to figure out how we would engage Duke on that, like, because they have a preferred contractor program. Then we talked about the flyer that y'all saw, or well, that y'all will see in a moment about IRA. I don't think Summer's done that yet. No, she did do that. I can't remember. Too many meetings. And about different items and where things go. And then we had a little conversation with Amy about MMV and HVAC projects. So measurement and verification for our heating, ventilation, and air conditioning projects at Greenbelt Alliance, and how that should look. We talked a little bit more about that, but she and Sam, we're going to talk about that more. I think that's it. Tech committee, did I miss anything?
Might jump in and add one thing. There was some discussion about potentially doing a heat pump hot water group purchase program, and maybe even also working into that, having a preferred installer, sort of like we've done with, or like Greenbelt Alliance has done with some of the solar projects. So having a preferred installer who must be part of the Duke preferred program, so they can get the Duke rebate as well. But it seemed like that had some strong potential to me, so I thought that was worth mentioning.
So Dave, that was actually on my list of things, of notes that I took to investigate. So thank you for saying that. Rick?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, ditto that. And if anybody has any recommendations, I mean, yeah, I guess I personally don't think that we should have a single installer recommended for something. To me, certainly something like a plumbing thing, it's different for rooftop solar. It's a much more newer, much more complex kind of process. Placing a heat pump is something you literally can do yourself without plumber or anybody under the code, and even without a permit. And so I would just like to pitch on the table, if anybody knows any small, who would be the kind of people who might join the program and be really into something like this and picking up bulk work I would appreciate finding out about them or us getting it collectively on the table of the tech committee.
All right, unless there's more discussion, let's move on to, well, we have Community Engagement Committee. Summer, is there anything you would like to add from earlier?
Yeah, so we revived the Community Engagement Committee and met for the first time last month. And it was just kind of a big brainstorming session about what the goals of the committee are, who our audience is, what the messaging should be, and who's missing from hearing the message. So it's all still being figured out. We're meeting again on October 26th. If anyone wants to join in, I can add you to the docs and everything. But there was some really helpful feedback. We had some new faces join us, and there was feedback like a lot of our messaging is focused in the city of Asheville. What about the people who live in the, out in the country? So it was really good to have feedback from people who have not been in these meetings. And yeah, I'm really excited about this committee. So there's really nothing concrete that came out of it because it was just, again, a bunch of brainstorming, but we're excited about that.
Great, thanks, Summer. And I recommend when you send out the next invitation, send it out to the big list so everybody knows about it, because not everybody's here. They're not all, some people don't come to all the meetings, myself included. But yeah, send that out to the big list.
Will do.
All right, fundraising with Sam.
As you know, we're in perpetual fundraising mode to run all the programs for our nonprofit. And the one we're working on right now is one for the Dogwood Trust. And this will be for continuing the home repair program and also some additional support for Energy Savers Network. We actually just did our annual fundraising event was this past weekend, Cider Fest. And it's kind of, it's money for GBA general operations. And that went pretty well. And we will be doing an end of the year fundraising campaign. So you might hear me ask you for money by the time the year ends. So this is the way we kind of help those programs get going, because we have to piece together funding from contracts and grants and private donors and events to make all this work. So we keep going, and that's my short and sweet report for the day.
Thank you. Hannah, are you ready to talk about the Energy Savers Network?
Yes, I am. I'm Hannah Egan, the Outreach and Resource Coordinator for Energy Savers Network. I know there's some new people here, so I just kind of wanted to do a brief intro of this program. We help low-income households in Asheville City and Buncombe County, so people that live in single-family homes and mobile homes with energy efficiency upgrade and weatherization services for free. So we do that with our staff and a lot of volunteers. Sam had just mentioned the Dogwood Health Trust grant. We are also using that to help these homes with home repairs. And we also received some funding from the American Rescue Plan Act for HVAC repairs on existing electric heating systems and installing mini splits and new heat pumps. So that's just a little bit of what we do. We also are collaborating with Blue Horizons on the Neighbor to Neighbor solar program for installing no-cost solar systems on some of the households that we serve. So I guess I just want to do a little PSA to the committee to keep an eye out if you know any neighbors or any community members that you think would be good candidates for these solar systems, just because it is a pretty specific criteria. I think it can be really tough with a lot of low-income households. We do serve primarily mobile homes to begin with, so they're not good candidates anyway. And identifying the low-income households that have a new roof, that they own their home, they have homeowners insurance and all of that. So I see Summer just attached the Neighbor to Neighbor flyer that has all of that information on it. So that would be great if everyone could keep an eye out for that. We exceeded our goals last quarter with homes served. Our quarterly goal is 44. We served 49 in collaboration with United Community Development. They did about 20% of our homes this quarter. That's pretty typical for that crew. I believe we had talked and mentioned this last month, but we are no longer upgrading the Housing Authority property units. We did complete our contract, and we tried to collaborate with Duke and Franklin Energy for a multifamily energy efficiency program, but I don't know that it's a good fit. So we will not be doing HOCA units anymore. And I guess one other request I would have of the committee is we have been doing really well as far as client outreach, especially to the Latinx community, thanks to our program manager, Kelvin. But I really want to ramp up for this upcoming fall and winter, just because it's getting colder and people can feel that. So it is good for our schedule, just because people tend to keep their appointments. I typed in my email into the chat. I am looking to get into more community associations to talk to them directly, do a presentation, do some handouts. It's great to go to food pantries and partner with other like-minded organizations, but I think it's also really important to talk to the community directly, or someone that they would really trust in their direct community. So I could probably do that in combination with BHP if they would be willing to, but I'm also happy to do that just representing ESN. So if anyone has any ideas or suggestions regarding that, I'd appreciate any feedback. So I think that's it for ESN, unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Hannah.
I guess I have a quick question. Perhaps it's not specific to Energy Savers Network, but I was just curious if the whole heat pump that was developed by the New York Housing Committee, by the Gradient, and I'm not sure if you guys know about what New York did, but they pretty much went to the HVAC industry and said, give us something for apartments or multifamily. And then they came up, the Gradient, and can't remember the other company that won. But I was just curious if that type of innovation came up on some of these conversations that you've had specific to multifamily, for helping to upgrade aging infrastructure and adding, HVAC without needing to upgrade the base building components.
That has not come up with us. Our HVAC projects are limited to homeowners. So it is with mobile homes and single family homes. ESN usually doesn't serve multifamily units. But we were attempting to work with the city to do HOCA. But I think that would be something to talk with them about. That's not in our contract or on our radar at the moment.
Hannah, or Chris, is that the window unit though?
Yeah.
It's a pop-in unit that would work with many of Energy Savers Network's clients that have electric strip heat and window air conditioning, but whether anything like that Gradient system is commercially available or not. We have talked about the idea of a pop-in unit before, but we've never seen anything that anybody could really stand behind, and we don't have the clout of the city of New York.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And, I understand it's specific to high-rise apartment buildings, which Asheville is not known to have many of.
Well, but the units just pop into any window. I mean, the problem with those cities in New York is that they have, boilers that heat buildings, but many people with window air conditioning units. And so this is what they're doing in New York, as I understand it, is basically a heat pump supplement that would replace the window air conditioning that they typically have, but would also provide heat.
Exactly.
And that's something would love to have something like that.
It's pretty slick, but to your point, Brad, we'll see it when they actually make it and start installing them.
If we could buy it at Lowe's, we could try one.
Yeah. You can pre-order now.
Yeah, I looked into it a little bit and it looks like New York's paying, I think, an average of $11,000 per unit. Yeah, I think they're going to have to ramp up manufacturing, but yeah, maybe in 2 to 3 years, once they get manufacturing, and maybe there'll be other companies kind of going with that model. It could really be an opportunity. So let's hope that it does take off.
Yeah, maybe faster. Actually, a lot of money in the IRA explicitly for getting heat pump manufacturing beefed up.
Right. But those,
Yeah, it's hard. The traditional approach for any HVAC is permanence. You know, there is very little incentives to install mini split heat pumps or window units because you can just take them out. And so how do you know how do you know they're not going to sell it to someone else? Which is the unfortunate. I mean, Jason's not on the call, but you know, it's difficult to look at those programs and throw your hands up in the air and why aren't there more incentives for these programs? Well, they're typically additional, right? There's sometimes all the old buildings here in Asheville that don't have air conditioning, people now want it. And so it's all additional load. So
they all have air conditioning. It's just these window units.
Yep, exactly.
They all have it and it's very inefficient. It's not hard to get one. They don't cost that much until you pay your electric bill.
Yep. Sorry, Hannah, I kind of derailed.
No, it's okay. Thank you. Yeah, I saw that article that you sent me, Brad, and yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, we'll see what the IRA does. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. So neighbor to neighbor, what's with Summer?
Hannah covered some of it. We're going to overlap with Energy Savers a little bit, where she's going to help recruit some clients from homes already served. And if someone applies for neighbor to neighbor, we're going to try to make sure they can be served by ESN as well and do a little two-way street there. We're doing 2 homes that we got from Habitat either this month or next. Sam probably knows a date. And then the flyer I put in the chat, we've just finalized with Clary from Sugar Hollow Solar. They helped us fill out things that homeowners need to know about the implications of getting solar, what the process is going to look like, because there was some concern that if we called someone out of the blue and said, hey, do you want free solar? They're going to think it's a scam. So having this flyer was kind of our first step. Hannah and I are going to start making some calls over the next couple weeks from Energy Savers clients to see who might meet all the criteria. One question with the flyer I think we haven't answered is, you know, we're going to use it at our events, but otherwise, where can we put it? Where can we try to find the clients that are going to fit these really specific income, homeowner, roof requirements? So if anyone has ideas for that, please let us know. And that's about all I have right now.
I may have offered this on another call, but I'd recommend reaching out to the Stumptown group if you haven't already. I think it's great that you're working with the Habitat. That's a fantastic fit.
Thank you, Summer. Home energy chats with Jamie.
So home energy chats are going strong. We had 2 last week. If you have anybody that wants one, send them our way. It's a custom 1-hour talk about what's happening at your house energy wise. So we go through like specific systems in their house they have questions about, and then refer folks to programs like at Duke Energy, or if they want solar, we talk about what that looks like. But yeah, we had 2 on Tuesday, and they keep coming in. I had 2 more leads today, so it's a good way to serve folks that aren't in the low income category. We're finding a lot of folks that are already kind of engaged, but it's like, what else? They get additional marginal gains because we can point them in the right direction for things that they might have missed when they were doing their building or their retrofit. That's my update. Tell your friends.
Thanks, Jamie. So I have two things that we might discuss if we have time at the end that I wanted to touch on one of them. And just the long range plan. The long range plan the Buncombe County's long range plan has moved into phase 3. They're actually towards the end of phase 3. So they've already gone through the community, identifying their vision and goals. Phase 3, they prioritize the policies and strategies and actions to achieve the visions. And they'll be moving on to phase 4 fairly soon. I know we talked about that a good bit in the past, so I just wanted to provide that update. I don't have any particular knowledge about it, but I thought I'd just throw that up there. There is another thing which we talked about during this meeting, which a couple times we mentioned it, and there's this new thing people are doing, which is digital badging, which where people can earn badges and then they can put them on their signatures or whatever. People then can click on these badges and it can go back to the organization which gave them the badge. Some people are using them in a lot of different ways. I mean, even as much as universities allowing their graduates to put a digital sign for the university, and they can click on it and go back to the university, find out about the program the person did. And I wonder, through some of these things we talked about, if there's a way that we might think about trying to use that in the future. Maybe this is more of a community outreach discussion than a full panel discussion. But I just want to put that idea in everybody's head so it can, hang out in the backside of their brain, and figuring out how Blue Horizons could really take advantage of that to help us meet the 2042 goal. Because there are a lot of, I can see some applications, but I'm fairly new to it myself, but, giving some sort of acknowledgement, or somebody who goes through the home energy chat, they could put that badge on a Facebook post, and then the person could click on the badge and then go to the home energy chats and figure out what that is. Just think about that in your back of your brain for a little while. I'll try to put a link in the page. I think I've got it open so you can look at how it works, or a little bit of discussion about it. So that brings us to, are there any public discussion at this point of the second part of the meeting?
I have a random question, since we were talking about fundraising and philanthropy for a quick minute. Is there a way to have, is any of these organizations that are on the phone right now 501c3 certified and can accept donations from private entities? For those of us who might work for larger organizations, there's always, what do they call it? Giving Tuesday, where you can donate to your favorite nonprofit. But typically there's an eligibility. It needs to be 501c3. And so I was just curious if, I guess, is the Green Built Alliance fit that category?
Yeah, we're 501c3.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
happily accept donations, yes.
Have you ever done anything like that in the past, Sam? Just reminding, like doing a Giving Tuesday, what do you want to call it? Initiative? Campaign, yes, thank you.
Yeah, we're going to be doing Giving Tuesday campaign. And we're also going to be, as part of Give Local, the Mountain Express's effort to support local nonprofits. And we'll be doing an end of the year direct mail campaign too, and a bit of social media as well. So we're trying to do several different efforts to raise money for Energy Savers Blue Horizons project and bring the compliance.
Got it. Thanks.
All right, so Rick and Judy, yes.
Well, I mean, look, so are you getting ready to go to executive committee for something? Is that where we're at?
Yes, that's where we're at.
Okay, well, I will take the moment to pitch this on the table. So you've heard us talking about for forever about the whole thing with PACE financing and whatnot. And at this point, the county has, really understood on a visceral level the whole thing of investing money at bond rates and obtaining a profit from day one relative to current expenditures. And starting January 1st, we have on the table adding geothermal to that. And I want to caveat this by making sure everybody understands. I'm not saying this to the geothermal contractors because let us hope we're never actually doing any of these jobs, and they're probably all bigger than our license anyway. But we need to I would like to find as a climate activist, Net Zero Foundation, a test case, somebody with a church complex or something like that, who needs to upgrade their HVAC, so they have a need already, and they would like to find the least expensive approach to do this. And we happen to have a client like this, but it's not a client that, it's a Catholic church, so the diocese owns the property, and so it's too bloody complex to even consider. This needs to be a nonprofit, owns their own property, they have local control, and they're willing to be, and they want to be climate activists. They want a climate action function, because the only way to figure this out, and we've gone round and round with everyone at every level of government on this, the only way to figure this out is for somebody to have the guts to walk up to the county and throw it on the agenda and say, we want this to happen. Because the law is set up that once somebody throws it on the table, then somebody at the county has to go deal with it. And they'll never deal with it. Nobody's going to deal with this until that first step happens. And the reason nonprofit is so cool is because you may understand that this IRA has not just added, and they might want solar too. Solar would be fine too. So they've not just added that, these things all go up to 30% tax credit for 10 years, but they've also added that nonprofits can get that 30% back as a tax credit, a refundable tax credit. All they have to do is file the federal taxes, which they have to do anyway, file it as a section 179 deduction, and they get the money back. So we're only talking about the county providing maybe float, which would be great. I know banks could do this and everything, but I'm trying to push the issue and trying to get something major through that would help us drive decarbonization by 2050, by 2042. We could get this funding, this bond funding enabled on some level. It would be very powerful. This stuff is taking off all across the country, space stuff and all. And it's the only way it's going to happen. So anyway, we volunteer to try to help make this happen. If somebody can find a nonprofit who would be willing to be that test case, that's what it's going to take. And I guarantee you, we're talking about making money from day one under this scenario. There's refundable tax credits plus whatever. We're talking making money from day one. So that's no money out of anyone's pocket. It's just you have to gotta be willing to put your reputation on the line, say, I want to see this move forward in the county. Put me in, give me a response.
How big of a project are you talking about?
Like this particular church I'm talking that we work with, they've got like 13 units and they're all 21, 22 years old at this point, and they need replacing. So anything between, maybe a 2-room small unit, although I think the county might get mad at us for doing something like that. Maybe $30,000, $40,000 might be a good test case. So maybe just a small building with a couple of offices. Could be a complex and it would take $200,000. I don't think scale matters. I think it's the willingness to put your name out there to say, I want to see this move forward in our community. I want to be part of it and ask for it.
Does this have to be within one county? Is it a county grant?
Buncombe County. So I would think you would at least be talking about the properties in Buncombe County. How's that?
I'll follow up with you afterwards, with someone. It's not a church, but it's a nonprofit that might be of use. Or
I've got one also that needs something.
Great. Love to see it move forward.
Could I put one last thing before y'all go into executive session? I guess that's what you're going to do. Just put on everybody's radar. Read an article recently about how a nonprofit, or how the solar tax credits are available for at a 50% level for community solar that benefits low income people. At least 50% of the participants are low income. And I know we've talked about community solar in the past, and it's been sort of, love to do it, but we can't do it, whatever. But that's a pretty nice little piece to it, 50% tax credit under the IRA. It certainly would be something that I would think this committee could consider as a project, as part of maybe our low income initiative, or an offshoot of neighbor to neighbor solar. But it's and I guess the other question is, should we be looking for neighbor to neighbor solar at getting at least the 30% tax credit for solar somehow with neighbor to neighbor solar? Because now I don't see why we leave that on the table if we're doing neighbor to neighbor solar anyway.
Brad, I'd be happy to have a follow-up conversation, volunteer myself to look into that more with you. There's between the 30 and 50%, there's a 40% credit for projects that are, I think if they're low income housing tax credit projects, or there may be other qualifying things. And the barrier we've experienced is then pairing that with a nonprofit Duke rebate. The ownership structure of the low income housing tax credit program, even if it's a nonprofit owned development, is housed within an LLC, and they're the name on the Duke accounts, and so it's ineligible for the nonprofit rebate. So there's some barriers, but there's certainly some stacking of incentives we could do, and I'd love to look at that with you.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think all of those rules, I know this has all been possible in the past with nonprofits, but it's a complicated tax structure to go do it. I think that's supposedly been simplified with the IRA to where you don't have to get to that degree of complexity, and how much you have to peel off to get to a tax financing equity firm is a lot less, presumably under this new structure. So yeah, let's talk about it.
This might be a naive question, but I've always thought that, I'm sure there's multiple definitions of community solar, but I've always thought of it, being a 1 acre solar farm, down the street from here, and me and my neighbors and whoever else wants to sign up can participate in that. And we are not all directly connected to each other, except for the fact that we're on the same power grid as Duke, which requires them to develop a product to offer to their ratepayers. Is anyone aware of Duke having this conversation and offering a program?
I now have the connections of the Duke person who can make that happen. Because I participated in the carbon plan process. Is still ongoing. But one of the things that Duke is filing for in the carbon plan is for fast track approval of pilot programs, so that the commit, they've said, Commission, we can do more on grid edge distributed energy as a contribution to the carbon plan if we have the ability to do pilot programs and have a fast track mechanism, so we don't have to come back to you for a full hearing every time we want to do anything a little different. So it may be that is an avenue that Duke, in conjunction with a willing partner, could pursue as a pilot. once the carbon plan is approved, if they get that fast track capability, which I think they probably will get something in that, then that's the opportunity, I think.
Good to hear. Thanks for that, Brad. Let's hope it gets there.
Yeah, really. Just as an aside, this guy at Duke, I'll just tell you, he's a senior vice president at Duke who graduated from college in 2007. You think about that. He's a really sharp, innovative thinking guy that is responsible for all these activities at Duke if you can get to him. And young, obviously, compared to me. Shut up.
I think we have thank you for that. I think we have to move on. I wanted to give two guests an opportunity. They are both candidates to join the BHPCC, and Rocky and Mike are on the line. So before we go into an executive session, if you feel comfortable, I know we're kind of putting you on the spot. If you just wanted to say a little bit more about your professional background and why you'd like to be added to the community council, we would love to hear from you. And then we're going to go into closed session to consider their candidacy.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Micah Kraus, and I have been working in the sustainability sector for about 15 years. I have an MBA that's focused from Columbia Business School, focused on social enterprise, specifically on sustainability. And after that time, I went to work for several solar companies and realized that it was really the incentives at that time that were missing. So I went to work for a policy organization called the Environmental Defense Fund. And I led clean energy communications for them for about a decade, clean energy and climate change, and worked on everything from smart grid, renewables, energy efficiency, down to like nodal electricity pricing and everything nerdy. But I love that experience, and really that's my passion, is renewable energy. And I went then to work for Walmart, moved our family from Austin to Bentonville to head up Walmart's global sustainability communications, was really introduced to corporate sustainability from climate, energy, waste, nature-based solutions and beyond. And then after that, I worked for a large PR firm called Golan, and I headed up their ESG and sustainability practice. And we work with some of the world's largest companies, really building out their climate goals, ensuring that they were as robust and as impactful as possible. So we work with them to put together the goals and then announce them and announce progress all along the way, as well as build out roadmaps in order to reach climate and energy goals. So really excited to hopefully be able to put that experience to work and to value here in the committee. And we just moved to Asheville about 1.5 years ago, and we just love it here. And so I'm looking for a way to give back and be involved in something that I have a real passion for and an experience with. And I look forward to the potential of working with all of you. And I've done a lot of community outreach in my background as well. I think it would be a better fit for the Community Outreach Committee. I've done a lot of work with environmental justice groups along the way. I'm really helping companies, policymakers, and community members come to consensus on really controversial and sensitive topics around climate change. I'm from Texas, so you can imagine how that may have gone. But just really looking forward to meeting all of you, spending more time with the group, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, Micah. Rocky, are you still on the line?
Yeah, yes, Michelle, I am. Yeah, hi all. My name is Rocky. I mean, my real name is Rakesh Sridhar, but I go by Rocky. I'm from India. I grew up in India. And after my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, I moved to Japan to work with Honda, mostly designing cars, but also working on engine parts and whatnot for about 3 years. And then I realized that the world is shifting towards connected, autonomous, shared, and electric vehicles. And I wanted to specialize more on like transportation level planning, how to build a more efficient and environmentally friendly transportation system. So I applied to graduate school, got into MIT, and then I got 2 master's degrees. One was in transportation engineering, so understanding the planning, optimization, demand, economics, all of those things around transportation systems. And my second degree was in political science, mainly because a lot of transportation initiatives are not possible without government action or policy action. So so during my time in graduate school, I built a microeconomic model to sort of forecast the sales of electric vehicles over the next several years up to 2050, and seeing how macroeconomic policies affect the adoption of electric vehicles. So the IRA is a classic example of a policy which I was not in grad school when IRA came out, but a policy like that, you can analyze how that will affect the sales of vehicles. But anyway, after graduate school, I joined automotive consulting because I've always been in automotive and I wanted to work in electric vehicles more from a strategic point of view. So for the last 3 years, I've been working in consulting with multiple OEMs, Toyota, Hyundai, and now Honda. And my focus is right now, I'm a product manager for a vehicle to grid application that the future of Honda electric vehicles will have. And like really looking into what sort of use cases and things like that can be implemented to benefit not just the customer, but also the utilities, the auto company, and sort of the whole ecosystem, so to speak. And anyway, so as I've been working on these topics, I came across the Blue Horizons project when I was at one of Leaf Festival, and I really like the goal of Buncombe County to shift to 100% renewable energy by 2042. And I kind of understand that it's not as simple as just moving to fully renewable. We need to think about how does that affect our local economy? How does it reduce or increase the inequity in our society, especially red-lined communities and whatnot? And then finally, the environmental impact of like moving, transitioning, I should say. So yeah, I have been in Asheville for 2.5 years now, and very much involved in local communities, but more on social justice initiatives like Asheville Survival Program, Building Bridges of Asheville, and things like that. And my hope is to bring together all of these different dimensions for a big policy change such as this. How can we affect how can we proceed with these goals while managing equity and economic prosperity for all? Yeah, that's about it. Thank you. And I look forward to attending these sessions irrespective of my membership status or council. Yeah, what is the status? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Rocky. I really appreciate that. So I think we've already done public comment. So I think now we're going to move into closed session. And that's going to